Welcome to Fleet Safety Geeks. I'm Bob.
And I'm Phil, and we welcome you to our podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Fleet Safety Geeks. I'm Bob Mossing. I'm here with Phil Mosier. Phil, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Bob? Good to see you.
Doing great. Yeah, good to see you. I know you're at a conference, so you're in a hotel room, so a little background there change for you.
Yeah, so I don't have my Eagles stuff in my background here today, but I'm sitting in a hotel in Santa Clara, California, for the Ford Fleet Safety Conference. So,
That sounds exciting.
You and your Eagles got a lot to be happy about, my friend.
Yeah, so far, Mike. So far, so we'll see. It's a long season, so.
Yeah, in reference to being from Philadelphia, the Eagles are what, 8-0? Are they 9-0?
8-0. Yeah, 8-0.
8-0.
The only undefeated team left.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's going to last, but hey, we'll take it while we can.
Indeed,
that's right. And Mike Pitcher, we have a special guest, Mike Pitcher, on to tell a story. This is Fleet Safety. We constantly talk about distracted driving, and Mike has a great story to tell that is going to talk about this. Even though Phil and I talk about distracted driving a lot, as long as there are drivers out there who are distracted by whatever may be distracting them, be it a phone, usually technology, or their device, any device in their vehicle, or even their dashboard, we're going to keep talking about it and trying to keep that from happening. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself, say a few things, and give a little background?
Sure. I know both you guys from the fleet industry for a long time. I was with LeasePlan. I came from Dell Computer, where I knew nothing about fleet, and came over in 2004 to LeasePlan running sales. And then in 2000, I had the benefit of 2 weeks before the financial crisis becoming the CEO of LeasePlan, when all the money dried up, and went through that period with LeasePlan. And then I was the CEO of LeasePlan for about 9 years. And obviously, we in the fleet industry meet on a regular basis. Phil's out in California at a safety conference. All of us have been to NAFAs and AFLAs. And I really got involved a great deal into the safety aspect when I was the CEO of LeasePlan. We managed about 350,000 vehicles, and that was the advent of kind of cell phones and smartphones, and people started texting, and we saw this really crazy spike in both accidents and, unfortunately, fatalities. So it's something I've become very passionate about. My passion is on two things, really: leadership development and kind of distracted driving.
Yeah, no, Phil, we've talked a number of times about the statistics of number of crashes and fatalities recently. A lot of that's from distracted, perhaps, using any kind of medication while driving. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Phil.
No, so the numbers are up, just horribly up. The highest numbers we've seen in 20 years. For 2021 and 2022 is looking even worse. And there are any number of reasons. I think that distraction and impairment are some of the leading causes. But yeah, people became so used to using their devices during the shutdown. Now they're addicted to them, and it is causing problems.
When I get the opportunity to speak on the subject at a NAFA, I do some things with insurance companies and some other people and talk about it. They just released the 21 numbers, as we all know. There's a big lag behind when you get the data, and they've scrubbed it and feel really clean. But 2021 was almost 43,000 people died on the roads. It's like a 10.5% increase on the previous year. And one of the things that I speak about when I talk about distracted driving is, yes, I know the numbers, like 9 to 10 people die every single day distracted in their cars. But law enforcement will tell you that number's got to be really way underreported. And law enforcement will tell you they think like 50% of highway fatalities have something to do with a smartphone. right? Because they don't have the forensic abilities to determine every single one. So we know it's an addiction. We know every time a new group of teenagers become drivers that they live on that cell phone. And it's the statistics are just scary because 120 times a day somebody's getting a knock on the door that says their family member, brother, sister, mom, dad, their children are not coming back home because 120 times a day somebody's dying on our highways. Now, that's not all distracted. That's just deaths on the road. But again, we know that a big chunk of that is distracted in some way, cell phone, eating, medication, whatever that is. But it's just a bad situation, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the work that I know that you've kind of been involved in, Mike, is having legislation about not using a cell phone while driving.
Yep.
Phil and I will talk about that often. And while that's a win, still allowing hands-free conversations or phone calls, while they're not holding the device in their hand, they're certainly not texting if that's the legislation, and we've solved that problem. We still have the problem of having the distraction of having a conversation on the phone, even if it's a hands-free device or through the dashboard with Bluetooth or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? Not taking away the legislation wins of having a hands-free device or not using a device while driving. Still being distracted from the conversation. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I worked with the Georgia legislature to pass the hands-free law that was passed in Georgia, and it was an educational experience for me. So it was really about kind of learning. And right now, there's about 24 states have hands-free laws. And do I think that is the be-all, end-all of safety for driving? I do not. I think that still the conversation that you're having on the phone, the points you bring up of being distracted. So even if you're just talking on the phone and it's hands-free, your vision actually shrinks. Your peripheral vision actually shrinks when you're having a conversation from the cognitive part of how your brain works, right? And so many people tell me about, yeah, I drove for 25 minutes home on the phone the whole time. I don't even remember a red light or a stop sign. My body is like on autopilot, right? I'm driving home and that situation. So we know it's better. Is it the be all end all of safety that's hands free? No, because you're still on the phone. There are still issues with it. And I try to talk to people about limiting conversations. Just try to make, the lease plan put in a hands free, no texting, no use of the phone while you drove. And some people used to consider that draconian. But there are big companies like Shell and UPS and other companies that don't let you use the phone at all. Doesn't matter, hands free, whatever, they just don't want you using the phone. And that's the fix. But instead of going all in with that, what I advise people is just make the conversation that comes through as short as you can possibly make it, or tell somebody you'll return the call when it's safe. At any given moment, there's like 700 to 800,000 people using a cell phone in their cars. You see it every day. You drive on the road, you look right, you look left, people veer in different directions. It's really crazy out there. But part of my story is just make that call as brief and get on and off as possible, because you're susceptible to so many different things. But when we talk about those deaths, we know it's booze, alcohol, belts, people that don't buckle up, speed, and then distraction. The issue of distraction is it's all 100% preventable, and we know it. If you aren't distracted, if you didn't choose to make that choice, there are thousands of people that would still be among us.
And that's a very good point too, Mike. It says, so that's a choice. That's a choice every driver makes. And here's the thing. I say, you can say, okay, I'm going to be a safe driver, but then you have to make that choice over and over and over again during every drive, because when that phone does go off, do you choose to answer it?
Yep.
Or do you choose not to answer it? Do you choose before you drive that you silence your phone completely? Or do you use some technology that's going to, squash the call so that you're not even receiving that call? So these are the choices that drivers make, and you make an exact point, and it's kind of like impaired driving, right? So every impaired driving collision, somebody chose to drive when they were impaired, right?
Yep.
Every distraction collision, somebody chose that distraction over paying attention to driving. So every one of them, in my book, I look at that as it shouldn't have happened. It was a preventable crash. Should not have happened. So that's an excellent point you bring up.
Yeah, that's the scary side of it, is that when you look at it, so you guys have probably done Myers-Briggs or some kind of leadership profile or whatever, and you got thinkers and feelers, right? On the thinker side, the data is all there that says this is a problem, right? We know we have a problem, the number, right? So there's hundreds of thousands of injuries, like 400,000 people every year hurt in distracted driving accidents. We know that something like 3,000 to 4,000 people die. So the facts are there. Now put on your heart side where you feel and it's instinctive, and you look and you can see the stories like a Stephen Kiefer, who has the Kiefer Foundation, and his son was killed in a distracted driving accident. There's a little girl, 3 years old, in Austin, Texas, killed in a parking lot when she was going to watch her brother play a sport, and a woman drove by distracted and killed her. The heartfelt pieces of the number of people impacted, when you go, every one of those, Phil, was 100% preventable. Every one of them. You just had to make the decision, right, Bob? Of, I put the phone down and I don't drive distracted. And I heard this line, and it's a great one. We all love our kids. We all love our teenagers as they're growing up. Somebody said, hey, be the driver that you want your children to be, because they don't listen to what you say, they watch what you do. Be the driver that you want your kids to be, which means put the phone down and drive this rocket ship. If you're driving a big SUV, a 5,000-pound rocket, that
weapon,
it's killing people every day. And look, here's the other thing, and I didn't mention this earlier: pedestrian deaths, way up; bicycle deaths, way up; passengers, not the distracted driver. Here's the pain point too: 1 out of 2 deaths, fatalities, are not the distracted driver. It's some poor soul that's in the seat next to him on a bicycle walking across the street. And it's scary. The numbers are just scary, and we got to do something, and we got to attack it from a bunch of different ways.
So many
you bring
great
up
points.
myriad.
So many great points.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
I was a cop, and I would, stop people, and it seems it's the same violators, right? These people, you stop them, they're speeding, they're aggressive driving, whatever. Then their kids grow up, and the kids are driving just like their parents were, and the parents are going, I don't know what to do. And I said, you set the tone. They're following your example. So it's exactly a point. And then also, as far as the pedestrians, they're distracted on the phone as well.
Exactly right.
They're walking right out in front of a car because they're engaged in their electronics. So there are so many problems that are occurring. Listen, if you're near the road, just put the darn thing down.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And that's what's proven to be the hardest challenge. We mentioned addiction. I'm not sure we got addicted to our phones during the lockdown. I think the moment they made a phone beep, we got addicted to it. If you remember what was the raspberry, or we called it the crackberry, the BlackBerry.
Yeah, the BlackBerry.
Remember when the Blackberries first came
Yep.
out? And it would constantly vibrate, and it was on your hip, and you just constantly had to check it. We've been programmed to be addicted to these devices since they made them. And we know there's technology out there. Apple has it built into their phone where you can turn it off when your vehicle's in motion. I don't know why Android doesn't have it. You can use an app to do that, but that should be defaulted
to. The funny part, there's been some research done about kids and teenagers. Kids would rather give you the keys to their car and be punished by taking away the car than they would be by taking away your phone. It's like, I can't be without my phone. I have to have my phone. So it's really interesting that when you look at that a kid, we both grew up in that era where mobility, and you got your car, that was nirvana, man. I have my own wheels, I'm going. And kids today are like, you can have my car, but you can't take away my cell phone. It's my connection.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's interesting because here's some of the other research that's on distracted driving. You, me, whoever, every time you drive distracted and you text or you do something, you get this other little bit of shot of confidence that I'm a good driver. It won't happen to me. Hey, look, I'm Mike Pitcher. I'm 64 years old. I got a great driving record. Hey, I'm a good driver, right? It only takes one time to change your family's life and the lives of other people. They talk about the 5-second text on the highway. You're driving 100 yards blindfolded. If you're looking down and you're only on your phone for 5 seconds, but that's all it takes, and you alter the lives of could be multiple people and families forever. And it's happening again, it's happening every day. Phil, you were talking about law enforcement. I just did a conference where a guy walked up after I was talking about notifications and that it happens 10 times a day. Somebody comes and tells their family that somebody's not going to be home that day. A law enforcement guy, former law enforcement, walked up with tears in his eyes and said, Mike, you just brought back the memories of the toughest things I ever had to do. And knocking on a door, and I know before they answer, I am going to negatively crush this person.
It's going to ruin their lives
forever because their love
Yep.
is not coming back. And there's no text, no phone call, no message, no data that warrants that kind of pain that's inflicted on people. That is 100% preventable. It didn't need to happen.
And Mike, I've said it before on this podcast. I said, I wish I could take some people out to a crash scene, let them see it, smell it, and hear it, and then have them go with me to the home and talk to the family.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you something, it would change the way they drive. It ruins lives. People learn how to cope, but they never get over it. And so you're exactly, again, to spot on. People need to understand, and these things happen in split seconds. I reconstruct crashes, and I always say, if I could give some people even a half a second or a quarter second of time, the vehicles miss, everybody goes home. Excuse me. But there are, how many seconds after seconds after seconds do we give away to distraction? And you're exactly right. So the confidence builds when you get away with it.
Yep.
Like you do it when nothing happened, then you get away with it again and again and again. And then there's a time when you don't get away with it.
Yep.
And then there are the consequences. And as frequently, you see, the problem with this distraction is the frequency of it. People say, well, people eat while they're driving. Okay, pull up to an intersection, look around, see how many people are eating versus how many people are on their phones.
Yeah.
And there's the difference. It's the frequency of the violation.
Phil, that is really funny because I have a few friends that you would know the names if I told you who they were that are in the fleet industry that continue to say, hey, Mike, you're this whole distracted driving crazy person on phone. Oh, my God, you're all over it. What about these people that are eating a hamburger? What about these women that are putting on their makeup? And I'm like, I get it. That is dangerous behavior. But the point you're making, look around when you're driving, and what do you see? You see this device is attached to people's hands, their hip, they walk. I tell people this about the addiction. So you're not addicted to your phone. What's the only thing you take with you to the bathroom?
Right.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning sitting next to you on your nightstand? Right? And it's just this whole thing. Technology companies are spending billions and billions and billions of dollars to have us connected to these devices. And people are, it is an addiction. So we've got to attack it from multiple ways. Technology is a solution. People's a solution. And you guys know that, the book I wrote on leadership, I define leadership as influence. And I say you influence people always. We as fleet professionals, are we willing to have the courage to have the conversations with people we work with our family, with our friends, by the way, with our Uber driver that says, hey, bud, drive me, just drive. I know you're looking at nav, but you don't need to be touching the screen and moving and taking calls or doing whatever you're doing. Just drive. Oh, I took
I tell them
big ding on my Uber drive passenger rating because I told 2 drivers, stop touching the phone and just drive me to the airport. And
Yep. I do the same thing, Mike. I'm so glad to hear somebody else is doing that. I'll tell the Uber driver. I've told taxi drivers, hey, do you mind hanging up?
yep,
And they look at me and I said, you're driving me. You're distracted. And they look at me and I've had some say, they just keep talking.
yep,
But I've never had an Uber driver say, no, I won't hang up. They hang up
yep,
because they don't want to get dinked on their review.
Yep.
So, yep, I do the same thing. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a geek, buddy. You're one of us.
Trust me, I am a safety geek, and there's times I piss people off, right? Because I tell people this, that when somebody picks up their kid, I got 5 grandkids, so I got skin in the game, highway, right? But I tell people, let me ask you a question: if somebody came to pick up your kids and drive them to a soccer event or to the ball game, and they walked up to your house drinking whiskey, and then they did a few shots with you, and then said, "Okay, I got to take the kids away," how would you respond to that? You'd freak out. No way your kids are going to get in that car. Do you have that same conversation with your neighbor, friend, or relative? Hey, do me a favor. My whole life sitting in your backseat. Will you do me a favor and promise me that you won't text and drive and you won't be on your phone while you're driving my kids? Those conversations take courage, but people realize, and everybody, the most dangerous thing, Phil, you're out in California. The most dangerous thing you did was drive from the airport to the hotel. And
Correct.
and that's the dangerous thing we do every day. If we can encourage to have those conversations, that's why I was telling Bob when he asked about this. One-on-one conversations where you can influence somebody means all the difference. Let's fight this fight one guy at a time. Let the technology fix the technology. Let corporate policy deal with corporate policy. But us as fleet leaders, be those people out there going, hey, listen, I just want you to make sure you get home safely tonight.
Yeah.
Bob, isn't that the reason we start this?
It is. And I have those conversations all the time. And Phil, we mentioned on a podcast, even if it's not your responsibility to promote fleet safety, just make it your responsibility. If you say that, well, fleet safety is not in my job description, that's health and safety, you're passing the buck. If you have a chance to talk to somebody and tell them to drive safely, do it. I try and get in front of my drivers as much as possible. We talk about safety all the time. Whenever they tell me, well, traffic's going 70, we use telematics in some vehicles, and they say, well, if I'm not going 75, I'm going to get run over. And I'm like, well, I don't want you going 75. And they said, well, I have to pass this truck and then I have to brake check them just to turn off the beep. I'm like, why'd you pass the truck? I mean,
Exactly.
Why did you feel that you had to go that fast? We need to have these conversations all the time. Anything about safety, whether it's using a phone, being distracted, or just, not having, safe practices. So you're absolutely right. That's why we started this, and those are the conversations we want to have.
So, I think as the National Safety Council says, their fight is about safer roads, safer vehicles, safer drivers. Well, we're doing stuff with our roads. We know darn good and well the vehicles with crash avoidance systems and the things that are there. We're getting safer cars. The one thing that they're trying to address that I tell you is purely attitude is that safer driver. And that's understanding all those risks. And when you're in the seat driving, be the kid you want your be the driver that you want your teenagers to be, and think about that. It's an attitude thing that says, hey, look, I'm a safe driver. And then talk about it amongst your companies, your friends, your families. Spread the word. Just real quick comment. AAA did a survey with teenagers. What influences their driving habits? 2 things. Other teenagers and their parents. And so many parents, I included, I was the one guy going, don't text and don't drive distracted. Don't do this. Don't do that. And my daughter said, Dad, why are you so emotional about this? And I said, don't you realize you could die? Da, 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 da. And she goes, Dad, you do it. That was the very moment that I decided I'm done, because
she can bake it, bud.
Your watches you, your husband watches you, and people watch you. And if you take the stand, and even on a phone call comes in, Bob, you come in and go, hey, Bob, I'm in my car. Let me call you right back. Boom, done. It's a thing of half the calls we take are pure BS. And we wind up BSing on the phone for 20 minutes
Right.
and bad things happen.
And they happen
Yep.
fast. So there's the issue. Drive like there are, kids in the car all the time, or the person sitting right next to you, driving right next to you, has that child in the car. You don't want to hurt those children. Well, you know what? You don't want to hurt yourself either. It ruins families. It wrecks people's lives. You see all the memorials alongside the highway, and I start having flashbacks to all the crashes. It's happening every day, every minute.
Yep.
It's a shame.
Too many times a day. And again, one more time, preventable. None of those deaths, none of 400,000 injuries. We talk about the deaths a lot,
Right.
but what about those
Right.
life-changing, life-altering injuries that happen in a crash?
Right.
We can do better. But again, I think we need to attack it from a bunch of different angles with a bunch of different people with a bunch of different strategies. But it's not going
Right.
away. It's going the wrong way. And collectively, as fleet professionals, we really ought to be the leaders that are out there talking at our kids' schools, talking to children, talking to people we ride with, being that person that just says, hey, listen, know the facts and know that something can happen in seconds. Just put the phone down and drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mike and Bob, I know both of you, have been in the fleet industry for a lot of years. There are certain organizations, certain companies that have a fantastic driver safety, programs up and running, and they're known. They have that culture, right? We as a society need that culture. We need to do better as a society. And Mike, you're just to your point, talk to your families and just keep beating the drum. We just have to keep beating the drum. And that's the whole reason we started this Fleet Safety Geeks podcast, to get the word out there, and to have people like you, Mike, come on. We appreciate it, man.
Last little plug in, when you talk about we as fleet professionals, I did a conference about a week ago, and someone was talking about leadership. Hey, look, it's the CEO's job. It's the vice president's job to be talking about safety. So if fleet professionals are watching this podcast, one of the things that's really important is getting senior leadership involved. And it's an easy conversation. Hey, boss, you do want to ensure that all of our people get home safely every single day, don't you? Yes, I do. Will you participate and recognize some of the good drivers, some of the successes we have? Because when the CEO sends an email or picks up, makes a phone call, or a VP of sales calls up and goes, hey, my sales guy, you've been 3 years without an accident. That gets around to everybody. Safety is not the safety director's job. It's his responsibility, but it's everybody's job to make sure our guys, our women get home safely every night. And when the senior level leaders buy in, it makes everybody's job easier. And it's important. The objective is get everybody home safely every single night so they can spend time with their loved ones and their kids.
Perfect.
Perfect message.
Thank you.
Yep. Fantastic. Yep. We need to hear that. Every company needs to hear it. Every CEO and senior manager, executive with every company needs to hear that message. So thank you. That's perfect. Well, we try and keep these to about 30 minutes. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add, Mike. I mean, this is your opportunity to kind of, add your platform and say anything that you can think of to add some value to our podcast, which we really appreciate.
Sure.
I know you've given a presentation at NAFA and other places. I don't know if we have time for that or if you want to get into that a little bit.
Well, just let me say this, that I do I do 2 keynote presentations. I do one of them on the 7 elements of leadership that I think you guys are familiar with, and I think everybody is a leader. I think influence is important. So fleet professionals are leaders in their organizations because they influence the lives of so many other people. But I also do a keynote called How to Save a Life, and it's about distracted driving. And most people think that it's about how to save my life, right? Because I'm the driver. It's not. It's about how to save the lives of the people we care about and love because they watch us. Be the driver you want your kids to be. Be the driver you want your spouse to be. Be the driver that you want your coworkers and friends to be. What I say is you influence other people all the time. They watch you. When you're in a company environment, if you're a safe driver and you take driving seriously and you're working with that rep and he gets on the phone while he's driving or she's driving, hey man, put the phone down. I know your wife, I know your kids. I never want to be the person that has to make that call. When I talk about how to save a life, it's how to save the lives of people we love and care about because they watch us all the time and be the driver you want them to be. That's the lives I'm interested in saving. As Phil said earlier, we may drive differently when no one's in the car with us. And if we don't show up, we definitely alter the lives of our family and friends because we're not there and we chose to engage in some pretty reckless behavior. Be the driver you want others to be. That's my wrap.
Perfect. Appreciate that so much. Thank you.
And thanks for what you guys do. As a safety geek, I just wanted to say, I've watched the news. I've kind of texted with Aaron Gilchrist, and there's stuff that's out there with people like us that fight the good fight. All I'll tell you is this: stay in the fight. It's a good fight. Stay in. Use your passion. Use your connections. We can indeed make a difference.
Geeks unite.
Geeks unite.
Hey, by the way, Phil, I know you said you Eagles. I don't know if you can see that, but my LSU Tigers.
I see LSU. Yeah, I see that. I see that. I have a friend who is a big LSU fan. So yeah. Nice.
All right.
Nice.
Well, Mike, thank you again. Phil, thank you as always. I'm just going to do a quick sign off here. So anybody that's watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and share it with others. Let people know it's a good place to find this. We do have a video option. And if you're listening to this on an audio podcast platform such as Apple, Google, or Spotify, please subscribe so that you can be notified of future episodes. If you would like to reach out to me or Phil, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And send us a message if you'd like to be a guest or have a suggestion for an episode. With that, I'm going to say thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mike, for being a guest on this episode. It's always a great message. It's always great to hear from you. And I'm glad you could make it today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, and thanks for the invitation.
All right.
Thanks,
Take
Mike.
care.
Well, with that, everybody have a good week, and we'll talk soon.